Thank you very much, Alaji Fadera. I think this is a lot of information. I've seen a lot of young people, trying to tap on their books. I know a lot of questions will be from the floor for them to ask more questions. But what really caught my mind from his statement is the pledges, that's the promise, the commitment, and the disbursement. He made mention of $1.7 billion being pledged, and a commitment of $182 million, dollars rather, and they according to him, in 2018, from the bilateral, multilateral, and from the UN system, a disbursement of $182 million was given. So the commitment was $972 million. Is that right? Okay. So I think young people are very interested about the NDP, and there are a lot of questions that I believe they will ask Mr. Alaji Fadera before the end of this session. But we have another sideline spotlight speaker. He's not around? Okay. So the Minister of Interior, we should have got Usman Sise, but he's not represented. So we start with my session, my panelists on the session. As I mentioned them earlier, they are from different sectors, from different backgrounds, and we'll be discussing about different reforms in the Gambia, from the TRRC to the CRC, the SRS, and also the NHRS. My first speaker for this will be Mrs. Kamara. She's a lecturer from the University of the Gambia, young, bold, representing young people in different platforms. Madam Nyimasata Kamara will be talking about the participation of young people, the youth political participation in the Gambia. We have been talking about the CRC, we have been talking about the TRRC, talking about different reforms in the country. But how can young people, we are talking about 61% of the population are all young people, 51% are women, and 47% are children. So how can young people participate in political process in the country? I think as a lecturer at the University of the Gambia, under the political science department, we can have any other right person than her to come and discuss with young people how we can participate in the political process. Mrs. Kamara? I think you, okay, she's Miss Kamara, sorry for that. So she can take up the podium and talk to young people, or you can use the mic. Okay, we can use that mic.
Is it not? All right. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me here. So when I was contacted to be here to talk to you guys, I was told I'm coming to talk to my people. I said my people because I belong with you in so many ways. I belong with you for being a youth. I belong with you for being part of this region. I am born in Kiang, which is part of LRR. I grew up there. I left when I was 12 to pursue education. We know that opportunities are always limited in this part of the country, and that is what forces many of us to go out, to look out for opportunities, to grow ourselves, and to come back, hopefully, to develop this region. And I wanted to talk to you about my childhood. I grew up in a very diverse community. Diverse in the sense of ethnicity, in terms of economic abilities, in terms of culture. But I grew up learning certain values that will stay with me forever. Living in an area that is situated along the highway, I remember at times when at 3 o'clock in the morning, a complete stranger would come to the house, knock on the door, asking for a place to stay. And our mothers and our fathers, not knowing where this person comes from, would open their doors for them, offer them their leftover food. This is making me emotional now. And they would pat one of their kids on the back and say, make space. Let this person sleep with you. I've grew up in an area where you have a stranger who comes and farms with your family for a whole season, and they become part of the family. You call them auntie, you call them brothers, or you call them uncle. and they stay with you for a very long time. That is the region I grew up, and that is the region where we are now. Those are the values. Those are the values that I've learned. And wherever you are, we must not forget these values. We also grew up with challenges. Some of us were forced to leave. I know a majority of you might have come from the urban areas to come back to be part of this program. If we had the opportunity, if we had the chance, we would stay. And we would add value to this region. But we didn't have that. We have had situations where we lose our mothers or our fathers or our grandparents because they could not have easy access to healthcare. Or that we have to go and pursue education because there aren't quality education facilities available here. Or that we have to go and seek jobs elsewhere because those opportunities are not available here. And sometimes the hardships make us lose ourselves. We lose our self-esteem. We lose our confidence. And we are also part of a generation of people that suffer from belonging to three categories of groups. One being that if you are from the rural area, your opportunities are slim. You are categorized as being a member of a marginalized group. So that box is checked for all of us who are from the rural community. The other box that is being checked for us is being part of the youthful demography. The youth are part of a marginalized group, and this is a fact. And if you are a young woman, you have three boxes that are being checked for you. A majority of us belong in all these three categories. And that is why it is important that we remind ourselves of what is our responsibility. How do we grow out of this situation? How do we hold our officials accountable? How do we take part in political processes? How can we not afford to sit on the sideline and say, politics is not for me? Politics is always about you. Your entire life is dependent on somebody else making decisions about how you live, about how you survive, how you afford something or otherwise. And that's why that is important. So I mentioned the challenges that we face as being part of the rural folks, or as being members of a youthful group, or as being young women. And those are not on us. If we have duty bearers that fail in their responsibility, that is not on us. But what is on us is to choose to be part of a success story. And we have a renewed opportunity to create something new as the youth of this country. The processes are happening. In 2016, we had the opportunity to change a repressive regime, and we played our part. That happened, and that's not where our responsibility stopped. That's not where it must stop. It must continue. It's an everyday process. As politics is an everyday reality, our role in it is an everyday process. So what is on us is to remember, first of all, where we come from, and the values that have been imbibed in us. And the values that I have mentioned here still stay with us. So wherever we are, in the greater Banjul areas or in the Serekunda region, wherever we are, we must remember always to uphold the values of friendship, the values of brotherhood, of honesty, of truthfulness, of holding ourselves, first of all, to account for our actions and our inactions, and also others, especially those who have been offered the responsibility to deliver services to us. Because this is where everything begins. You cannot expect goodwill from someone unless you're willing to offer goodwill, first of all. You cannot expect a corruption-free society unless we choose to live by honesty, by truthfulness, by hard work, and not by falsehood. And the reform processes that we're talking about, when we speak about reform, it's because there is a situation that's already prevailing that is not positive. And then we want to change that. And we talk of institutions, but institutions, they are not separate from the individuals who form part of those institutions. The security is an institution where individuals belong. The police, the army, the NIA, the immigration. And we are those individuals who belong there. The TRRC process is ongoing, and it's uncovering truth about things that had happened, where individuals, all of us have played a role, one way or the other, whether we like it or not. And the Constitutional Review Commission that is ongoing also, it's about making laws by which we ourselves are going to interact, and we are going to rule by, and that we are going to live by. So everything is about us. And that is why it's important. I always emphasize on this. Every reform starts with the individual. It's not the institutions, it's not the processes. So don't look at it as something that is separate from you. We are all part of it. And why this is important for the youth especially? Especially for youth from this region, this part of the country, where a majority of us form part of the marginalized group that I have mentioned earlier on. When things are good, people from this region and elsewhere in the rural areas, we feel it the least. But when they are bad, we feel it the most. So we have the highest stake in making sure that things are done the right way and that the reforms are successful and that everything is done according to how the values that we have learned from childhood would have allowed us to live our lives. The TRRC process that have begun 2 years ago is going to uncover, although many truths have already been uncovered, but it's a continuous process and it's going to uncover a lot. And people have been involved, victims, as well as perpetrators. And we have families who might have been victims, who might have been perpetrators. And tensions would be high, as it has been sometime in the past when few individuals were said to be released. But it's our responsibility to be able to understand what is of national interest and what is of politics. We must always, when we argue or when we take positions, we must always, first of all, look at the collective interest. What is in the interest of the nation, for example? What is in our individual interest that is going to add value to community? And it's important that we debate issues along those lines. And when we are going to participate, because our participation is not just about the work that you do, but you debating on issues also matters. Sorry. It matters. I am told that I have only 1 minute, some 30 seconds ago. So I'm just going to wrap up here to say that we must begin by doing good by ourselves, by our communities, and by our states, in the way that we live, in the way that we advise one another, in the way that we interact with one another, and always remember that home is always home, and here is home for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nyimasata Kamara. As I mentioned earlier, she is the lecturer at the University of the Gambia, and she has spoke extensively about the values that is instilled in us, and we shouldn't forget those values. I think those are advices for young people, especially for Kianka. Let me say, she's not from Badibu. She's from Kiang, so I will just have to spare her for that. So that's the values that they have instilled in us. I think that's a good advice for young people, especially those in rural Gambia. You know, we have a lot of opportunities in urban Gambia, universities, work opportunities, but I think we should also come back. Like a lecturer coming back to her community, talk to young people, it's a motivation. It's a motivation. She's a role model. She's a mentor to a lot of young people. Even to her students at the university, she's a role model. So thank you very much, Ms. Nyimasata Kamara, for talking to young people about the values that they have instilled in us. We have Mr. Yabo. Mr. Yabo is from the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations. He's also a role model to young people. When we say non-governmental organizations, we are seeing a lot of organizations that have contributed to these reforms. Reforms that they have been doing a lot of community outreaches. They have been doing a lot of sensitization. They have been reaching out to peer-to-peer influence. So I think as a representative from the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, he will be talking to us about the role of CSOs in the reform processes and the role of Tango, And Tango is the Association of Non-Governmental Organization. Mr. Yabo, you're welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. As you said, I'm an old teacher, and I want to stand. May I first of all acknowledge the presence of the people. Okay. May I acknowledge the presence of all the panelists from various institutions, from various places. May I also acknowledge particularly those from UNDP, government officials, and young people around here. Your coordinator or your director of National Youth Council, I don't know why he wanted me to come and talk to you. I'm going to be a bit controversial, particularly when it comes to youth participation. Fortunately, Madam Kamara, I also come from this region. I'm a Kianka, and for that matter, I come from a very small village of almost 3 compounds. And when my father decided to send, my father had 8 children. And I was the only one he decided to send to school. And many a time when I come back home for holidays, people will come to him and say, your child will become a Christian. Because those days, when you send your child to school, automatically they assume that he is taking the other way. However, fortunately, I have never tested the Christian life. And I had so many challenges also. Imagine a village boy grow up to the age of 7. That was the time when I was taken to my uncle in Brikama, and I was sent to school almost at that age, 7. It was a challenge. But as Madam Kamara said, I had to face it. For young people, those challenges are part of your life. In your life, if you don't face challenges, then you will not realize the gains. Let me tell you a little bit about Tango. Tango came as a result of voluntary organizations coming into the Gambia to help vulnerable people, disasters, fire breaks, droughts, and so forth. When they came in, they decided that they should register with government. And they are called non-governmental organizations, meaning that they are not directly under the control of the government. So they form bodies in communities to support women, pregnant women who have not got enough food to eat, like the CRS. They also support education. By then, in the Kiang West, there was not a single school, but Action Aid had to introduce community schools in the Kiangs. Now, those schools are government schools, and the graduates from those schools are in high positions in the government. So NGOs have different roles. But when it comes to youth development, it's key. Because, for example, Action Aid was looking around for young people who had not got the opportunity to go to school, and they are over 8. We are supporting them to go to school so that they can make it in life. Now, other organizations provided water. Then water supply in villages was was a challenge. So they had to bore holes, they had to provide water, and so forth. Other organizations were supporting agriculture, providing them farming tools or fertilizer or different type of seeds for their farms. So that's how NGOs came. Now, because the large number of organizations that have set up in the Gambia, they decided to form an association called the Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, acronym TANGO. So that's how TANGO came about in 1983. But my controversy is you are young people. There are a lot of reforms going on in the Gambia now. I want to ask you people right in front of you, how many of you are aware of those reforms? Just by showing your hands. How many of you are aware of those reforms currently going on by either by government or other bodies, UN systems and other bodies? Can you show by whom? How many of you are aware of those reforms as young people? Wow. Yes. And this was the issue I took up with Lamin Dabo. When I met with him, we traveled together. And I said, you know what? The young people are not aware of what is going on in this country. You go around in the villages or in towns, you see street corners, young people sitting down, smoking cannabis, jamba. Yes. You know where those jambas comes from? They are coming from our neighbors, most of them. And they are, you know what they are looking for? Money. They are bringing it here to sell it to you, to kill you, and get money out of you. Why do we have to succumb ourselves to those things? For God's sake, this is our country. You are the heart of the matter. You are the people who matters. All the developments, all the reforms happening in this country are centered around you. Have you ever heard government saying, we are building for old people like myself? No. Have you heard government saying, we are building roads for blind people? They are saying we are providing facilities in those structures for physically disabled. But the rest is you. So if you are not aware of those reforms, that is a disaster for this country. For example, you have the YEP project. They are providing resources for young people. You have the IOM project. You have the Ministry of Trade projects, UNB, name them. All those projects, 99% of those projects are centered around you young people, and you are not aware of it. You don't know what is happening. You are not involved in this. How do we move this country forward? It's not going. And this session, I think, is important, that we find more time to sensitize you, to let you know how projects are formulated, how you can be involved in this project to benefit yourself, to develop your own skills. There are projects where they train you and provide you resources to start what you want to do. And if you as young people in this country don't know about it, are not involved, then what happens? Young people, this is your country. If you see a Chinese coming here, working on our fields, he wants something to take home. If you see a Senegalese in a garage working, he wants to take something home. If you see a Guinean opening a small shop at a corner, he wants something. The Gambians, we are not doing anything, particularly the young people. We are not involved in the reforms. We are not involved in the projects that should benefit us. So this country will never move ahead. We are 50-something years independence. Tell me, where is the capital in the Gambia? Tell me. Where is the capital in the Gambia? Not Banjul. You go there, all the sewages are there, all the gutters are open. Buildings are as old as 250 years old in Banjul. How can you call that a capital? You go to Brikama, all the streets are filled with water. You go to Serakunda, floods, everybody's house is flooded. Who is coming to do these things for us? If you don't learn the skills that are supposed to develop those things, we will never, ever get anywhere. It's you who should. It's you young people who should get involved. It's you young people who should go out and learn these skills. It's you young people who should ensure that Gambia moves forward. Gambia has to move, and it cannot move in your absence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yabo, the father of all activists representing Chango. I know this one way of telling us the capital should come to LRR instead of Banjul, but we are not accepting that, Mr. Yabo. The capital still remains Banjul, isn't it? Thank you very much, Uncle Yabo, as we fondly call him. That's very important, and I think those are important statements from Mr. Yabo. And I have just been informed that every speaker should spend just 3 minutes instead, because I think we have less than 30 minutes to leave this hall, and some are traveling back to Banjul. So we please apologize for that. Next, we have Mr. Mustafa Njai. Mr. Mustafa Njai, representing Tough Africa Foundation. I just want to quote from one of my favorite authors, Nucleus Partners, about financing. He said, startup financing is not about raising funds. It is a holistic process that involves proper business planning with thoughtful growth targets. And recently we have seen a lot of intervention by TAF Global, young people, supporting young people from universities, young people to start up their businesses, supporting young citizens, especially Gambians. And a lot of people will ask themselves, why do we have TAF in our midst, talking about reforms? This is about self-reliance. This is about someone who believes in the potentials of young people, someone who supported young people in the country. So having him as a father, as a role model, and as a mentor in our midst, I know a lot of questions has raised. Why do we have talking about reforms in the country? But he's one person who has been supporting young people in the country. So we want to invite Mr. Mustafa Njai to come to the podium, or should I hand over the mic? Is that okay? Okay, he's not a teacher.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and those of us sharing the other side of the hall. And thank you also, my dear youths. I don't think here we've been very democratic here. I'm sure the previous speakers spoke quite long, and here you are now allowing me 3 minutes, huh? But when I hold the mic, I'm sure you cannot forcefully take it away from me. But anyway, all the same, I think I'll be very brief. I am delighted to be here. This is the third time we're doing this. We spoke in Western Division, and then we in Buyam, and this is the third one. So probably I could have just sent in a CD and just repeat myself. But taking from what the other speakers said and related to the reason why I am supposed to speak, which is on self-reliant, I noticed that both speakers spoke about where they were from, and both of them were from LRR. I would say that I'm from the Gambia because I have stepped foot in almost every town in the Gambia. So when I walked in here today, I was a bit nostalgic because in the 70s, I walked here. And I was born in Banjul. So whatever we do, I always want to focus on our nationality of being Gambian. And that is why these days, every time I meet any young person, I ask him where he or her is from. And most of the time, I know exactly where he or she is from, on his family, So I am Banjul born, but I am Gambian. Now, going back to the issue of self-reliant, I know you quoted something, but to me it's very academic. I'm not into academics. I'm very pragmatic. I get things done. And I think we're also talking about reforms. Mr. Fadera spoke about the NDP. You see, you have to be very careful, Mr. Fadera. When you speak about the NDP, please don't call out the figures. You know, when you say $1.7 billion, even those of us in top business, we shake. And then our eyes and ears are on, okay, how much can we get from this? So this youth here sitting here, they must be thinking, oh, wow, $1.7 billion. Oh, it must be these guys taking all the money and we're not having any part of it. That's just to say a small joke. But I focus more on self-reliant. And when I walked in, I am now trying to redefine what is urban and rural in today's Gambia. Because for us, when we were at your age, this was rural, meaning you cannot have internet here, meaning you cannot have power, meaning you cannot have air conditioners. Roads, today I drove between Brufut and here about 2 hours. If it was my time, it would have been 6 or 7 hours. 2 days. Or 2 days. So really, what is rural? I think today, where we are today, we should talk about responsibilities. I think every single citizen has a responsibility. Our president, as a president, has his responsibilities. You spoke about young kids getting up what they should do, but an argument will come up and say, well, but the policies are not there for us to operate. So I think we should focus on responsibilities, but very quickly, that every citizen has a responsibility. The president, the vice president, the public servants, and everybody should really focus today where we are on fulfilling their responsibilities. Therefore, coming down to you, the youth, you should take up your responsibilities. And your responsibilities for me is being self-reliant, ready to work. Because people who listen to me often will hear about me yearning about, young people who are not ready really to work. Self-entitlement. So my short advice, because I want to really stick to the time, is that to be self-reliant, as we say in Wolof, it's about Gomsa Bopa. Identifying your passion. I'm Jom. I'm sorry I'm speaking in Wolof. I hope everybody understands what Jom is. By Lee. Today what I see from a lot of young people, and I get tons of letters in my office, because we have said that we are committing 1% of our revenue, into our social corporate responsibilities, and mainly targeting the youth. But we are doing it on an institutional basis, not on handing out. We got tons of letters, people asking for, oh, can you sponsor me on this? Can you do this? Can you do that? I want to ask, for those of us who are our generation, the issue about Bobe job is no more. You know what a Bobe job is? Some will know. Bobe job meaning that sometimes on Saturday, as scouts or guides or whatever, you'll go and do some work. Bob is 25 bututs now, 1 shilling. Bob a job. So you do a job and they reimburse you back. They'll pay you for it. One must understand that you have a responsibility, and I keep underlining this word, responsibility, that there is no free lunch. Because at TAF, we don't go just and money fall down from the sky. I wake up and go to work at 7. My workers work under the sun. We pay taxes to government. We have so many responsibilities to make out a margin. At times we lose money. But people, especially you young people, you should not only look at me and say, oh, no, we want to be like TAF. But muyomba. You have to work hard. So for me, that's where we are. We are at a stage where there's a lot of confusion because we've found ourselves in a new democracy where today everybody wants to be an activist. I'm sorry about those who call themselves activism. But, activism, what is activism? Would you be given a form and you write that I am an activist as a profession? Skills. This country today needs skills.
That's what we need.
And no matter what you do, and talking about skills, please be passionate in whatever you think you can do for yourself. That is skill. And then from there, you can develop to be an entrepreneur. I think the word entrepreneurship is too Western for me. I want to argue about that. They keep on pumping all these Western ideas from Silicon Valley. That's where it started. And everybody says, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be a Bill Gates. Everybody wants to be a Steve Jobs. Everybody wants to be a Ronaldo in football. Those are the things that's affecting these youths. But what you will take to your grave is this, what you have learned and what you can do independently. I will tell you, my profession is, and I proudly write it, I am a carpenter. I am a carpenter. I started after high school with my 4 O-levels and had a passion for carpentry. And by God's guidance, I decided to pursue carpentry. And as a carpenter, I went up the ladder to where I am today. Today, we are operating in 8 African countries. So, one small boy who started at the age of 18 in Banjul as a carpenter, today get invited to Harvard University to give a talk. Gets invited to Wharton Business School. So you see, the problem is passion and hard work. You guys have to work hard. There's no shortcut to success. We need to be frank when we talk to you guys. On the opposite, we will talk to government, yes, put in the right policies. Stop calling masonry trowel technology. I heard that these days. I mean, I will not look at it, so I can just continue. But I'll be fair with you. I can go non-stop. But please, quite frankly, we need to have very frank discussions where every single Gambia, as where we are today at crossroads, we all have a responsibility to move this country forward. From the president all the way down to all of you. If we all fulfill our responsibilities, in the next few years, we can be like a Dubai. But we cannot be like a Dubai by just talking every day, going on workshops, driving big cars, taking per diem, flying out. That is not possible. So everybody needs to take their responsibility collectively for us to move this country out. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mustafa Njai. As we usually say, take fee, mbesa ke no jang. So these are country, and we can also contribute to the development process of our country. I want to acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Interior, Usman Sise. He said deputizing the Minister of Interior, Honorable Yankuba Sonko. So later on, we'll invite you to also give a spotlight speech. I want to now invite Ms. Mariam Aminata Sise from the Gambia Police Force. Aminata will be discussing about the civic security relationship, because earlier on this morning we spoke about community policing, how we can engage communities, how we can have cases reported to the police without, protecting their sources. So basically, Amita Sise will be talking about civic security relationship, because we know we are partners in development. As I rightly mentioned, the security sector, the citizen, the media, or whatever you call yourself, we're all partners in development. So Aminata is from the Gambia Police Force, the gender unit at the Gambia Police Force, and she'll be discussing about civic security relationship. Aminata.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists, the organizers of the program and their partners, my fellow young people, the media, and everyone else present here. Sisi, to rectify you, I'm Mrs. I'm not Miss. Oh. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, I work at the Police Gender and Child Welfare Unit, and I'm working at the police headquarters in Banjul. The importance of a cordial relationship between members of the police and the public, particularly the young people, is very important, because as law enforcement agents, our primary responsibility should be the protection of life and property. And you cannot protect somebody's life and property when that person does not have the necessary trust and confidence in you. So therefore, it is the responsibility of members of the Gambia Police Force and any other security apparatus to always abide by the laws of the land, and in enforcing any law, we must also respect the fundamental human rights of the people that we are obliged to protect. Another important aspect of the cordial relationship between members of the public and the police is the issue of the maintenance of law and order. Because many a times you go to forums, people always talk about the issue of police brutality, and most often these complaints are lodged by young people. It is important that we understand the laws of the land. Yes, we have a right to protest, we have rights to gather and discuss issues of concern, but these things have to go in line with the laws of the land. So the police, we don't make laws, but we enforce. So as it is for now, if you want to embark on any public gathering, you must get a permit from the Inspector General of Police. And the issue of this permit, to help you understand, because the moment you seek for permit from the police and you're given this permit, the police will provide security for you until the time that you finish your program. But without getting permit from the police, if the manpower is not there, sometimes they cannot provide the security for you. So the reason of rejection when it comes to application of permit is based on this area. Sometimes you apply for permit, you are not given, not because the police don't want you to embark on those that particular meeting or gathering, but because the manpower is not there. Probably they are engaged in other activities and they cannot provide you the necessary security that you deserve during that program. Because when you are to organize public gathering, you need to be protected from all forms of danger and also intrusion by criminals. But if the police are sure that they cannot provide you with such security, obviously they will not issue you with a permit. But sometimes the reason why the talks are much is because there is that kind of a communication barrier between the police and the public. And as a result, sometimes people tend to misconceptualize things. But it is for the best interest of the citizens. Anybody that is denied a permit, know that it is in your best interest. And anytime you are issued a permit, be assured that the police will provide you with the maximum security needed for you to embark on that particular activity. And I think another issue of concern is the issue of detection and prevention of crime. This cannot take place without a cordial relationship with members of the public, because the police cannot be everywhere. So as a result, there needs to be that very smooth relationship between members of the public and the police, particularly the young people, because these are the cream of the society. These are people who are always on top of issues, and informations are easily accessible by young people. So therefore, it is important that the police have a cordial relationship with the youthful to enable them do that function of prevention and detection of crime. Because it is not in the best interest of the police to be always reactive. Instead, what should have been done is proactive policing. And proactive policing, one of the strategies in is the prevention and detection of crime, which cannot be done without having a cordial relationship with members of the public. And this the Gambia Police Force have now realized, and this is why the community policing unit is utilizing all means to ensure that they embark on continuous community outreach programs to engage members of the public about their security concerns, and also to have community policing focal points in all regions and districts. All these are ways that will help people to have access to the police anytime that issues of crime or criminality is about to or happen or has happened, or when crimes occur, the necessary evidence are preserved. The final one that I want to talk about, Ms. Moderator, is the issue of arrest and prosecution of offenders. This is a very important function of the police, and this also requires the police to have a very cordial relationship with members of the public, because arrest sometimes situations are tense in a way that only the police cannot execute the arrest. So therefore they need support from members of the public. In certain instances, even members of the public can arrest and hand over the offenders to the police. But without civil-police relationship, these things cannot take place. So therefore, I think the police will try to improve in that area so that when there is more collaboration and communication between members of the public and the police, issues of crime and criminality will be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Aminata Sise. I don't want to repeat the same mistake, so I'm going to call you Madam. The one next to the, yes, I'm going to call her Mariam, Madam Mariam Osingat, instead of Miss or Mrs. Thank you very much, Aminata Sise, and I think coordination and communication is very important between the public and the security sector, and as she rightly mentioned, they will double efforts to make sure that there is more communication strategies and also there is coordination between the public and the security sector. Next to Mariam Aminata, we have Madam Mariama Singate from the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission, but she'll be talking about rule of law. I know a lot of people, she's a familiar, familiar face on TV when we have sit-ins at the Dunes Hotel for the TRRC. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, she's the youngest council of the TRRC, smart, bold, and representing young people as well. So clap for Mrs. or Madam Mariama Singate, and she'll be talking about rule of law. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to my fellow panelists. It is once again a great privilege and an honor to share this platform with you. The first speaker, Madam Kamara, spoke about values that all of us have, and all of us have, sorry, thank you. The first speaker spoke about values that are enshrined into us through our parents, and also Uncle Taft talked about responsibilities. This all relates to the rule of law. The rule of law is about the values and laws that operate in our land. The rule of law entails that the government and the citizens must operate within the scope of the law. It entails that the government must provide a functional judiciary for the enforcement of law. It also provides that the government must provide the enabling environment for the freedom of expression. The rule of law also states that there must be equal treatment of all citizens regardless of who you are. Both government and citizens need to be treated on an equal platform. The rule of law also entails that the institutions, the public institutions in the land must be strong and efficient, and there need not to be any form of nepotism or whatsoever. The public institution must serve the interests of the people at all times. Both government and its citizens must operate within the scope of law. There is no discrimination with respect to who should operate within the scope of law and who shouldn't. It states that there is no one that is above the law. It's a fundamental principle of democracy. As such, if a country wants to maintain a sustainable economic growth, then its citizens and the government must uphold the rule of law. Any thriving country you see in this world today, just look at America, for example, Senegal, for example, Kenya, and other countries. Both citizens and government operate within the scope of law, and there is peace and stability in the country. That is why their economy is thriving today. If we want this country to be at the level where other countries are, then both the government and the citizens must respect the laws that are in this country. The speaker before me spoke about the relationship between the police and the citizens. With respect to the police and the citizens, The police and the citizens all should all operate within the scope of the law. The police in the enforcement of law and order are to operate within the scope of the law. If the police operate outside the law, then the law must take its full course. It is not for the citizens to get up and attack the police. However, there are institutions put in place to ensure that the police operate within the scope of the law. You have the Ministry of Justice. You also have, if I'm not mistaken, you also have units within the police that ensure that the police act accordance to their mandate and not in ultra-virus of their mandate. Citizens, on the other hand, must understand that the laws are here to protect us. And in order for us to enforce the law, we must also obey the law. So the fundamental principle of the rule of law is obedience to the laws of our land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Singate. I think that's very important. Then I think the NCCE, they have a role, a responsibility to tell people about their rights and responsibilities, especially within the laws of the country, because as you mentioned, they should understand the law, the security sector, but as well as the citizens as well. So I think they have a role to play, and that's the National Council for Civic Education. Now we have Mr. Lamin Silla, Keba Silla. Keba Silla is from Sterling Consultation and Consultancy, if I'm right, and Consortium. Okay, sorry, I'm not reading from the program guide that is given to me. So Mr. Keba Silla is from Sterling Consortium, and he'll be talking to us about youth and entrepreneurship. Mr. Njai mentioned about skills. We can call ourselves activists, we can give ourselves good names, but then let's also instill ourselves the skills that we think will now benefit us, because from where he started to where he is, I think he has ventured into skills. And Mr. Silla will be talking about young people and entrepreneurship. Mr. Silla, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, the panelists and then the audience. I think Uncle Tafa make my work very, very difficult. He is a role model that we, the emerging entrepreneurs, look up to him. And if he speaks before you, definitely you have a difficult task to say something more than what he deliberated. But I would like to thank the organizers, UNDP and NYC, for coming up with this important topic, that is the role of youth entrepreneurs in national development. I think I'm excited for 3 reasons. First, I'm a youth, I'm one of you. And second, I'm emerging entrepreneur. And the third, Uncle defined the rural area now, but I still categorize myself, I'm from a rural Gambia. That you struggle to go to my village. I'm from Nyakoi, that is about 400 kilometers from Banjul. And then I'm not from LRR, but a good number of you are familiarized with my face. I'm always here week in, week out. So I also consider myself as I'm from LRR. Is he Mr. What's his name again, from Minister of Finance? Fadera. He talked about the 8 priority areas in National Development Plan. And in those 8 areas, one of the key priority areas is youth empowerment. So therefore, the role of youth entrepreneurs can create a huge employment opportunity. In all gatherings that I attend, we the young people, we keep talking about the unemployment rate. I was shocked the other time when this labor survey report was out, which indicated that 41.5% of young people are unemployed. I think we can do something about this. I was one of unemployed youths. When I came back from UK, pursuing my master's degree, it took me time to pick up a job. I attended several interviews, and I was one time offered a job. And when I reported, the institutional head told me that now you're going in for internship for 6 months. And it's only after 6 months, then I will categorize you as an employee. I was very shocked. And similar forum like this, the same person made mention of a statement that really pushed me. And he said, if all doors are locked, create one for yourself. And from that day, I went back home and I told my wife, henceforth, I am not going to look for a job. And I'm going to create a door for myself. You know what happened today? I don't only create door for myself. Today, I employ 15 Gambians. That is direct employment. Indirectly, with the support from UNDP, from other projects, I indirectly created a job for over 100 youths, and some of you are sitting here. So you can see what we can do as young entrepreneurs towards national development. And those jobs created, it created a lot of revenue for the government. I'm paying tax. I'm paying corporate tax. My employees are paying tax. Those money are going back to the government. Those money is what government use to do other social development in our areas. So our role is so important. We have poverty experts here. I have to be very careful to use statistics. But again, we told in Gambia, poverty is at 48%. And a good number of those are young people. So if we take entrepreneurship seriously, we will reduce that number significantly. Uncle Tafa, can we consider him as a poor person today? He has much from that number. So we can all do something to reduce that poverty rate in the Gambia. We're still importing so much money, food, about billions of dollars that government and private sector are spending to bring agro-food outside. There is a local entrepreneur here, one Mr. Kanye. His farm is just a few yards from here. So he's doing a lot, and he's going to make so much money. So youths, we can use entrepreneurship to create jobs and to reduce what? Poverty, and also improve what? Food sufficiency is another priority area in national development. So we have a role to play in national development. You see, this, is it a proverb that keeps saying that all this forum that is happening right now is to create what? Peace and security in the Gambia. And young people should play a crucial role in that. So if your mind is only those sitting on jettos, smoking, as my uncle said, because those minds are not engaged into productive things. They said an idle man is a devil playing ground. So if you are busy doing something, like if you just like my own example, I wouldn't have time to be sitting at Jetto. I will always be thinking of what other opportunity. Uncle said when they made that place, 1.7 billion, the same thing goes to my mind. How much can I get from that? So an entrepreneur you always look out for opportunity. You would not be thinking of sitting in the Jettos and then, smoking, and that would end up, imbalancing your mind, and that will lead you to do something that you don't want to do. So in overall, as young people, I always have this you know, I'm always passionate when I'm talking to you because I know we have great potential to make things work or to effect, you know, the change that we all yearning for. Let us stop talking.